as a child, Dr. Boyce Watkins has risen above the obstacles to become a pioneer of scholarship and advocacy worldwide. In college, he was the Wall Street Journal Outstanding Graduating Senior in Finance with a triple major in finance, economics, and business management. He went on to earn a master's degree in mathematical statistics and a PhD in finance at the Ohio State University. During his year of graduation, Dr. Watkins was the only African American in the world to earn a PhD in finance. As a public intellectual, Dr. Watkins has changed the definition of what it means to be a scholar in America by leveraging cutting edge technology and a vast network of scholars, celebrities, and activists to share empowering and thought provoking messages to the masses. Dr. Watkins has made thousands of appearances in national media, including CNN, ABC, MSNBC, and many others. He is also the founder of the Young Black World Coalition and the co-founder of Watkins Media Group. Both organizations collectively reach more than 6 million readers per month. Do me a favor and welcome my mastermind brother to the stage, Mr. Boyce, Dr. Boyce Watkins.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Black people? How you guys doing today? Oh, what a party, man! I came in and I just I was so excited to see just the energy. It was really cool to see the music and hear all that. I mean, I was feeling good. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well today, and I hope that I can add some value to your life. My goal is to very openly just talk to you about ways that I believe that you can get a little bit closer to whatever it is that you want out of life. You know, I'm not here to tell you what you want. I am not one to tell you to do anything that I mentioned here today. I just want to help you. I want to help you succeed. I want everybody in here to become a trillionaire. I want you to build family businesses that last for the next 300 years. I want you to live out your wildest dream, whatever that is. And I will just say that I'm also very honored and flattered to have an opportunity to address you because I have a tremendous amount of respect for Lamar and Ronnie and TSP. I consider this space to be better than and more effective than pretty much any business school in America. You know, those universities that charge you $200,000 to get that bachelor's degree that 80% of y'all probably ain't even using right now. You know, the one that was preparing you to go get a job to work for somebody else where you still paying for it. You know, this to me is the wave of the future. This sort of engagement is that's where it's at. That's where it's going to be at. That's where it's going. And this recent whole situation with the virus and the pandemic only accelerated the inevitable. You know, when I'm talking to my kids about how to succeed in this world, how to get ahead economically, I'm talking to them about things like TSP. I'm not talking to them about, you know, whatever's going on at these universities. Doesn't mean that they're not going to go to college, but there is a way to make a living, and then there's a way to make a fortune. And the method to make a fortune is not something that is taught on college campuses. Take it from a guy who's been teaching on college campuses for a long time. I've taught at a few different universities, and so I will hopefully be able to add some value to what you're working on right now with what we shared today. So give me a second. Let me share my screen here, and I'm going to make an effort. Y'all got to forgive me because sometimes I get real clumsy with technology. So forgive me in advance for all the stupidity that flies out onto the screen. Okay, so we're going to talk about what I call rich people problems. And, you know, when Diddy used to say more money, more problems, and Big used to say that, that is true. But really, you know, I think the problems of a rich person are just better quality problems than the problems you had when you were broke. I've had poor man's problems. I've had rich man's problems. I'll take the rich man's problems any day of the week because I don't remember. I don't know how I figured out how to buy food in the same week I was about to get evicted when when I found myself homeless in the middle of the night having to break my lease when I was 28 years old. And that is a true story. I had to pack up a van with everything I had in it in the middle of the night. And I moved to Ohio, and the van was so full that I had to drive with my basketball on the dashboard. I had to literally drive like this. And it seems like the craziest thing in the world. But those experiences allow you to appreciate when things are better, and to realize that no matter what you're going through, it's never that bad. There's always a solution out there. And so let's dig in. So this is me. This is when I started, when I joined the faculty at Syracuse University in 2001. I was a young PhD. I just finished my degree. I thought that I was a successful Black man at that time. And I guess I was a little bit, somewhat successful. I mean, academically speaking, I'd pretty much done what I was taught to be the pathway to success. Go to school, work hard, get a good job, and all that stuff. And it was my first job. I was making $115,000 a year. So that's pretty cool. And those are the other faculty that I joined with. And not many of the other faculty look like me. And it was kind of tough, kind of depressing. But one thing that was very interesting, though, about that experience at Syracuse was I got an opportunity to live up close to rich families and see how families from other communities were doing it, what they were doing with their kids. Syracuse is not like Harvard or Yale. Syracuse is like the school, like if you have one, if you're rich, you send your smart kid to Harvard or Yale. And then your not so smart kid, you send them to Syracuse so they can still get that uppity experience, even though the academic rigor isn't there. We didn't push them the way they did at Harvard and Yale. And but a lot of my students went on to Wall Street and they made a lot of money. And it kind of gave me insights into how different families think about wealth, how they go about growing it, protecting it, how they indoctrinate their children into that culture, and all these other things. So rather than just teaching a lot of kids from other communities how to stay rich and get richer, I decided I wanted to bring some of this back to my community. So I began this journey of kind of doing more public stuff, talking more to the public about some of the things that I figured out about wealth and over time. Everything from things I learned from my grandmother, rest her soul. She's right behind me, by the way. My grandmother's name was Felicia. She was the first person to teach me about wealth. And we named, in the Black Business School, we named our panther Felicia. So every time I speak, I got my grandmother watching over me and protecting me. And I need that. I need that every day. And I feel it every time I bring her name up. You hear a lump in my voice because I had to stop myself from crying because I love her that much. And so anyway, so let me tell you what happened when I started doing more public stuff. You go on TV and all that stuff. So I had one conversation with Tyler Perry many years ago, and one conversation with Kanye West maybe about less than a year ago. And what's interesting about those two conversations, the reason I bring them up is because in both situations we talked about wealth, or money came up in the first 3 minutes of the conversation. With Tyler Perry, it was about maybe 2008 or maybe 2009. I don't remember what year it was. But I remember that my assistant called and she said, yeah, Tyler Perry wants to talk to you. I said, oh, that's cool. Yeah, sure, it's Tyler Perry. Why not? And so we talked, and one thing that had happened the day before that occurred, he'd been on the cover of a magazine where anybody, tell me if you remember this, but they basically said that he had quietly become the highest paid man in all of Hollywood. Anybody remember that? Where they put it on the cover like this Black man made $100 million and nobody knew. And I said, wow. I said, what does that feel like to have, to be on the cover of a magazine after making that much money? And he said, I hate it. He said, nobody wants everybody to know how much money you make. That's just, I don't want everybody to know how much. Who else would want their income to be put on, just plastered on a magazine for everybody to see? And at that time, I got it. But years later, I really got it. I really got it because one of the things I heard from this guy who happened to be a billionaire is he said rich people are loud and wealthy people whisper. And that's because, and I think that speaks to a type of strategic thinking that wealthy people tend to have, and they don't need to brag and prove to you how much money they have. They literally, when Lil Wayne said, "G's move in silence," they really do move in silence. They get their business done. They ain't got to brag about it, all that stuff. Now, another guy that I did speak with one time, these are not my friends. These are just people I talked to one time, was a guy named Kanye West, who's a little bit erratic. But one of the things that's interesting about Kanye, now he's a little bit of a louder rich person for a lot of reasons. But one thing that came up in our conversation was he told me that he was a billionaire. He actually claims he's worth $4 billion. I don't believe him. I don't believe he's worth that much, but I do know that Forbes magazine did calculate his net worth to be about 1.3 billion, largely coming from a multiple on his shoe sales. So he sold $400 million, or oh, no, sorry, he earned $115 million or so from his shoes, his Air Yeezys or whatever they call, and they did a multiple, and it ends up being over $1 billion. So he's technically a billionaire. And one of the things that's interesting about that too is it made me think about some other things that I saw where not too long after there was conversation about him getting a divorce from his wife, Kim, who's also probably a billionaire. Definitely her family's worth over $1 billion. And it made me think about some things that you and I should probably really think about in terms of your relationships and how that can affect your economic situation, good, bad, and everything in between. So with that said, here are a couple of facts that you should understand about wealth as you grow in wealth. Some of you in here are already millionaires. Some of you are thousandaires. Everybody in here is going to be a millionaire. If you plan to be a millionaire at some point, type yes in the chat. Everybody tell me, let's just claim it. Let's go ahead and throw it out there in the universe, because I bless all of you with whatever blessing God puts inside of me. I'm giving it all to you right now. I'm passing that millionaire energy to everybody in this room. So I'm literally telling you that everybody in here will will themselves to wealth because you're doing the right things. By sitting here and just listening to people like Lamar Tyler and all the other experts that are coming in here, you have substantially increased your likelihood of becoming wealthy. One of the biggest variables that determines whether or not someone becomes wealthy is whether they understand wealth. And the fact that you're seeking economic education, studies show that substantially increases the likelihood that you're going to actually have a lot of wealth. In fact, a lot of people that don't have wealth, if you ask them, well, how much financial literacy did you embrace? How much time have you spent learning how to build wealth and learning where the money is? A lot of the people that don't have wealth will say, well, I haven't spent any time with that. And studies actually show that millionaires spend about 10 times more time studying wealth and economics than the average person. So this is not a luck thing. This is not just an inheritance play. And let me show you why. Here's one fact. 70% of all wealthy families lose all their wealth within one generation. How many of y'all knew that? 70%, the overwhelming majority of wealthy families lose it all in one generation. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because we've studied this kind of thing, and 90% of all these families lose all their wealth within 2 generations. So if your kids don't burn through it, then your grandkids will. And so the question becomes, how do you get into that 10% where your money's going to last over multiple generations? Because we understand the importance of wealth. I'm a big student and a big believer in Powernomics and Dr. Claude Anderson, and Powernomics is changing the world. Every time people get introduced to it, they embrace it. And I believe that wealth is power. You live in a capitalist society, and capitalism is stronger than your democracy. Capitalism is stronger than racism. Capitalism is stronger than almost anything that exists in America. In fact, your government is run by the money. Joe Biden and Kamala became president. They got to the White House because they were able to raise $3-4 billion in order to do that. So money kind of drives everything. So Black economic power is very important, and Black family wealth is extremely important because that allows you to shape your destiny. So let me lay out some steps to get to economic heaven, just so we can kind of do a quick recap on the accumulation process so that we can understand what it means to be at that mountaintop where you're solving rich people problems. Well, first of all, the first step is, and this is what we go through with our students in Black business schools, that first you got to find out where the money's at. If you don't know where the money's at, then you don't know what to go for. There are typically 3 ways that people get wealthy. That is through stock and bond investing, real estate investing, or entrepreneurship. If you're not involved in one of those 3 things, chances are you're probably not going to become wealthy, because America is a country that is becoming more and more divided in terms of wealth. The 1% are scooping up more of America today than they ever have at any point in the last 100 years. When they show graphs of inequality measures in America, it looks like a bridge, where the bridge, the bridge has the peak and then it drops down and comes back up. It looks like a bridge. The first peak is maybe, I think, the 1920s and the Robert Barron era, when you had Andrew Carnegie and Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan all taking up all the wealth, and then they passed laws to stop that from happening, antitrust laws. Well, then it starts to go down, then it starts coming back up now, where now a lot of the tech giants have accumulated a lot of power, and people who understand how to own capital have accumulated a lot of power, because at the same time, workers' rights have declined, labor unions have been destroyed. Globalism is a big deal, where you can now hire your workers in China and Indonesia and not in the United States. So working your way to wealth It used to be possible, perhaps, if your parents were born in the 1950s, 60s, or 70s, but it's not possible now. It's very, very difficult now. So the three ways that people tend to get wealth are stock investing, real estate investing, or entrepreneurship. That's why every Black child should know how to start a business by the age of 12 as a simple means of economic survival. Next, after you figure out where the money's at, you make a plan to go get the money, right? That's pretty straightforward. So you choose your pillars, so which one do you start with? Do you start with stocks? You start with real estate, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna go through this quickly because that's not the focus of this conversation, but I think it's important to build that foundation. Next, you execute your plan, right? So that's what they call the accumulation process. You have to, time has to go by. You have to accumulate. The number one variable in wealth building, and I'm a math guy. I used to teach math at the University of Kentucky, so math is kind of my thing. And one of the things when you break down all the equations, when we were writing mathematical equations on how money works and how money grows, the number one variable in those equations was time. And the reason time matters is because time allows you to accumulate things. It's like my 11-year-old came to me and she said, I had a growth spurt this week. And I said, yeah, you are taller. And I looked at a picture of her just 3 years ago when she was like a little midget. I said, look, you were a little midget 3 years ago. Now you're tall. And also her daddy, I'm the bonus daddy, but the real daddy is like 6'5". And I said, yeah, you're going to be taller than me in about 2 years. And that's because there's an accumulation process. The more time that goes by, the more she's going to grow. And that's the same way with wealth. Once you get the process in place, you allow time to just kind of work it out. And then before long, you have an accumulation process. So you apply your resources toward wealth accumulation. You engage in what they call the plowback, where you make money and you're reinvesting your money, you're reinvesting. People that tend to reinvest in themselves, reinvest in their life, reinvest in their business, reinvest in their education, etc. Those tend to be the people that have the most wealth, which is why that Black spending power conversation is so important, because if we're encouraging spending, then we're not encouraging growth. We're encouraging giving away everything that we have. The last piece is protecting the money that you earn. This is when you really dig into rich people problems. One thing a lot of people don't talk about is that once you get a lot of wealth, you kind of become a target. You become a target of everybody. Some of you raise your hands or say something in the chat if you are this person in your family. If you're the one that has the most money, you're going to be the target of every sob story within a 100-mile radius. Anybody who needs money or about to get evicted or needs to borrow some money is going to hit you up. You're going to be the target of lawsuits. Lawyers know how to smell money, so they will sue you. They will put you in the lawsuit just in case they can find a way to get money from you. Even if you didn't do, you're like, I wasn't even in the car accident. I just witnessed it and told the cop what I saw. They might sue you just to see if they can get you to write a check to make the lawsuit go away. You become the target of obviously anybody that wants to steal from you or swindle you, etc. So things like accountants and lawyers become really, really important. I used to hate paying all that money every month to accountants and to lawyers, but I literally love my lawyers, my accountants so much. I would love to kiss them all. But I don't, because that's sexual harassment. But I love them that much because they keep my stuff organized, and they also help me defend what we have from what can only be described as maybe the predators or just people, opportunists, whatever the case may be. So they organize your wealth. They protect you from the predators. Do not get caught up in thinking, oh, I'm going to save a couple of dollars and not pay the lawyer, not pay the accountant. Lawyers and accountants are essential to protect your wealth. The next thing that I find that wealthy families do is you treat your family like it's a business empire. You want to get into a mindset where family isn't just an emotional phenomenon. And what is a family, right? When we get together on Sunday and we go to Big Mama's house, what does Big Mama do? Big Mama cooks for us, and we sit and we enjoy each other's company. Maybe the guys are watching the game, and maybe the ladies are talking in the kitchen or whatever the case, whatever it is. I don't know if I sound old-fashioned when I say that, but that's just what happens in our family. And the thing about it is, one of the things that doesn't cross a lot of our minds, at least didn't cross my mind when we were growing up, is the idea that it can be more than that. That when you think about family and love and showing love, why do I cook for you? Why do I feed you? Well, I'm feeding you because I'm showing you I care about you by making sure that you have food you can put in your body. Well, what better way for me to show that I care about you than to help you actually get money that you need in order to pay bills and to live a better life, right? We don't think about that, right? We outsource that part. We say, okay, well, after we finish showing love and cooking for each other and talking, everybody's going to go out and go to work, right? Everybody goes to their corporate plantation or wherever it is that they go to make their money. And most of us in here are entrepreneurs, so we've kind of gotten away from that. But one of the things I want you to really tap into is the fact that you're probably sitting on millions of dollars in resources and don't even know it, because family is one of the greatest economic resources that you own. Family is a great place where you can exchange ideas, opportunities, networks, possibilities. You can exchange labor and capital in ways that are beautiful. Every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, me and my family get together on family Zoom meetings. And in one of our most recent meetings, I was talking to my cousin. My cousin is he doesn't exist. My cousin does not exist, and let me explain why he doesn't exist. Because when you hear people talk about black males, if I were to tell you my cousin's a 34-year-old black man who never went to college, you would think that he's probably broke. He's in the struggle. He spends his time being scared because he's going to get killed or whatever. And so when I say he doesn't exist, I mean that's not his life. My cousin is a multimillionaire, and he's a multimillionaire because rather than going to college, not that there's anything wrong with that. A lot of us went to college. I did. I enjoyed it. He actually spent time learning how to make money. He spent time learning how to build wealth. He spent time learning how to build a business. And so my cousin casually mentions to me something like, he says, yeah. I said, yeah. Have you seen the price of Bitcoin lately? Because these are the conversations we have in our family meeting. He said, yeah. He said, yeah, I think it went up. He said, what is it? Is it over 5,000, 10,000 now? I said, no, it's at 37,000. And he said, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. He said, I have some Bitcoins. I said, how many you got? He said, about 38. I said, what? He said, yeah, about 38. God gave me 38 Bitcoins because I did a project for him back in 2010. I said, you do know 38 Bitcoins is worth about $1.6 million, right? And he goes, oh, well, that's cool. It was just like that. Like, it was that kind of a conversation, right? Like the kind of conversation that I think people wouldn't even believe if I told them. So the point of the matter is to say that when you have these weekly family business meetings, it gives you an opportunity to exchange information and things that you didn't even know about each other that could be beneficial. So when I found out my cousin has 1.6 million that he didn't even know about, in addition to the money he did know about, it's like, oh, great. Now, if I have a venture and I need a partner on the venture who's ready to write a check, I can call my cousin. He's part of our family bank, right? So basically, there are 3 C's to building your own economy, where you can actually do this in your own family. You can do this in this group. The 3 C's are the markets for capital, the market for contractors, and the market for customers. These are the 3 C's. This is what we talk about. This is our foundational teaching in the Black Business School, that basically, in order for an economy to function, you pretty much need a market of borrowers and lenders, meaning those who need capital can get capital from other people. So it helps if you have, say, a family endowment, which a lot of wealthy families have, some sort of family endowment that you can borrow from that you can utilize for your business ventures, right? A market for contractors, that's the labor market. That's people that create jobs and those who are looking for jobs, right? Contractors and people that hire contractors, right? And that's massive. If I were looking to build a business right now, I have no doubt in my mind that I could go to this group right now and get all of the labor and technical expertise that I need to do pretty much almost any project that I want. The last one is a market for customers, and that's basically producers and consumers. Once you have the capital and then you work the capital, then you've created a product that has to be sold to a consumer. A lot of times the consumers and the producers are in the same group. If you read books like Black Labor, White Wealth, by Dr. Claude Anderson, where he talks about how America got so rich, he talks about the fact that that capital, meaning land, was one of the biggest wealth generators in America. People came here to get free land. And then the labor came from us. A lot of it did, right? So we worked the land. Like you have to clear the land and chop the wood and pick the cotton and everything else. And next thing you know, you take that cotton and you sell it in a consumer market around the world, and that's how America got rich, which is why we're owed reparations. So the same idea of creating an economy can be applied right there in your own life. You just have to kind of know what that looks like so you can identify the wealth when you see it. So if you want something that's free, we actually have a whole layout of how to build your own family bank and everything else. The URL is 100yearfamilyplan.com. And the reason that I put that together is because one of the things that I want us to really try to do is understand, not just where the wealth comes from, but how wealth builders think. And one acronym that I use is OPP. Now, OPP. Yeah, you know me, right? From back in the day. I'm not talking about that. That's not. We're not trying to get raunchy here. OPP stands for opportunity, patience, and perspective. That means that you can spot opportunities when you see them. You have the patience to allow those opportunities to evolve, meaning the utilization of time and not wasting time as a way to build wealth. So, for example, my brother had a newborn baby 3 days ago. We've been investing for that baby since before he was born. So because we've got so much time, we can invest tiny amounts of money every single week for him. And then by the time he's 25 or 30, he won't have any money problems. He'll have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, sort of waiting for him. And then perspective that's where the 100-year plan comes into play, where when you're talking about building a wealthy family empire, no matter what the economic status of that empire is, I don't care if you made 2 nickels in your business, by having sort of a long-term view, what that does is that incentivizes you to put mechanisms in place to ensure the survival of this legacy long after you're gone. Because I hate to tell you this, but you're going to die. We're all going to die. We're not going to live forever. I talked to a guy this morning who picked up my laundry, and I saw his father last week, and he said, yeah, my father just died. He was thanking us for sending a video, a get well video, because he got COVID. And he said, yeah, he didn't make it. And we were talking about the fact that now, a week later, after his father just passed, his son is running the business and picking up the laundry instead of his father. And that there was a preparation process for that. So let's dig into that a little more. This digs into your kids. Now that image right there, that is my niece, Amina, one of our little queens in our family. She's going to inherit quite a bit. Hopefully she'll have the common sense to be able to utilize that inheritance in a productive way. So what you want to do is you want to turn your child into a kid. And what does that mean? KID is an acronym that stands for knowledge, investment, and discipline. This is how you raise children, not just to become millionaires, but how to manage an empire that you're going to spend your whole life building. This is how you avoid becoming part of the 90% that loses all their wealth in 2 generations. A lot of us grew up in the struggle. How many of you grew up in the hood? Raise your hand. How many of you grew up knowing, what it feels like to eat a fried bologna sandwich as dinner, not just as lunch and not just as a snack, but literally as dinner? How many of you you could, little things like how many of you like had roaches in the house? I had roaches. Roaches were my roommates. And we all go through that, right? And the thing is that you hate it when you go through it. Maybe we feel bad, like God, it was terrible, but really you gained a certain type of resilience and a certain type of hunger from that experience that allowed you to go on and do amazing things. So the thing is, the disadvantage that your kids have is probably similar to the disadvantage my kids have, which is that they're not going to get a chance to know what any of that is like. My kids do not know. If they see a roach, they scream and scream bloody murder and run out the door. They don't know what a fried bologna sandwich tastes like. They've never been able to tell whether mama got paid by how much food is in the refrigerator. I used to be able to tell. I knew when mama got paid or didn't get paid because there will be food when mama got paid, right? And so what occurs is that the kids, I have to kind of do some extra things with them to make them prepared to take over this thing that I spent my whole life building. And every child is not ready for that. Just because we're related doesn't mean you're going to get to pull the reins on this institution that we built. So the way you prepare your children is what's called knowledge, investment, discipline, the KID model. This is what we put together for our kids that are learning from us. Knowledge means that your child should have financial literacy and understanding at an early age. They should understand Black wealth building almost as much as they understand religion, sports, hip hop, or anything else. So what that means is that wealthy people that want to preserve their wealth, they have regular conversations with their children about money. These do not have to be complex conversations. These do not have to be discussions where you have them reading big, long books or anything. But my kids know that I'm all about powernomics. They know that I don't talk jobs. We talk about building businesses. They know that no matter what they do professionally, there's an economy around that will allow them to build something and also to preserve whatever their inheritance happens to be. So little conversations I have with the 11-year-old might be basic things like she loves to do TikTok dances, and she then edits the video and stuff like that. So we talk about content creators and how content creators are making millions of dollars on the internet. And we talk about Tyler Perry and Ice Cube. I got a chance to meet Ice Cube. We did some political stuff together. So I had her meet Ice Cube because I said, he's a content creator just like you. He owns his own, production company just like you, right? He makes money making movies just like you, right? And so she's sort of, taking all this in. And what that does is that hopefully, fingers crossed, prepares her to have an elevated economic consciousness when I finally hand the keys over and say, okay, daddy's too old to do this anymore. you can be the CEO if you want to be, right? So knowledge means financial literacy should start at 5 years old. It shouldn't start when they get to college. It should start when they're very little, because they're going to take over your empire, and you need them to be ready. They need to go through business school very early in life. Investment means building a capital base for them to operate with. So, for example, one of the frustrations I had was when I was 24, 25, I probably knew more about finance and economics and investing than most, 99% of all people, because I was teaching college students when I was 22 years old. Actually, I taught my first college class when I was 22, so I knew a lot of stuff, but I didn't have any money. I didn't have an inheritance. Nobody gave me any assets. I was kind of in the struggle. And the thing about it is that struggle is a distraction. When you're doing strugglenomics, it's hard to do powernomics. And so I was in strugglenomics. And when you're just struggling and constantly trying to deal with the little stuff, you can't go to the big stuff. Like, I think the rapper T.I., who's in Atlanta, has a song called Big Shit Popping and Little Shit Stopping, or whatever, right? So you can't do the big stuff if you're dealing with the little stuff, right? And so ultimately, when you accumulate capital, when you invest for your child, maybe something like a $5 a day investment plan, which actually we have that. If you guys want that, I can have Lamar send that to you. But basically something that allows them to have a capital base to work with, so that when they come up with that $1 million, $1 billion business idea, it's not going to get destroyed or ended because they can't come up with 5-10 grand that they need to get off the ground. A lot of us won't have that issue. I assume you're saving your assets, but just keep that in mind. You need to give them a capital base. The last piece is discipline. You can have all the knowledge in the world, all the capital in the world, but if you have no discipline, you won't succeed. The Stanford marshmallow experiment actually showed that children who can't delay gratification when they're 5 years old tend to not be successful in life. And one of the things about wealth that's really fascinating to me is that when you're talking about getting those rich people problems, and you have a lot of wealth, and you're defending your wealth, and you're defending the empire, discipline is hugely important. People who are undisciplined tend to lose all their assets. There was a guy I went to college with by the name of Antoine Walker. Antoine Walker was a great basketball player. And at that time, the University of Kentucky went to the national championship. And a lot of us knew that Antoine could not read, but the professors didn't care because they just were happy that he could get on the basketball court. Well, that didn't work out so well for him later on, because Antoine goes on to the NBA. He makes $111 million. And the next big headline 10 years later that I see is that Antoine Walker went broke. He literally lost all of his money. And a lot of that I attribute to really a violation of almost every aspect of the KID model. He probably didn't have much economic knowledge, right? He's leaning on some other people to take care of him, which I guess they didn't do that. Maybe investment, in terms of investing capital that he was earning as an athlete to prepare for life after basketball. Some of these guys never think they're going to get old. And then discipline. Discipline's huge, right? Run around and trusting a big button to smile and getting into these crazy situations, whether it's with women or with other people or family or whatever. The lack of discipline may have caused him some problems. But overall, if you don't have the discipline, then the money will disappear. When they say a fool and his wealth will soon part ways, that's really true. And I see that as a lack of discipline. Your children should be taught discipline. To be honest with you, I don't know if this example is going to make you mad or not, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. When I studied the legacy of the family of Donald Trump, I study the history of every single person that I talk about in public. And so I read Barack Obama's whole family history. I read Donald Trump's whole family history, Joe Biden's whole family history, because I like to understand not just the apple. I want to understand the tree that the apple came from and the tree that created that tree. So I go back as far as I can. So here's one interesting, fascinating thing that will allow your children to compete with the Donald Trumps one day, because they're going to compete, right? Sun Tzu in The Art of War says that battles are won before they begin. That it's the preparation that wins the battle. And I repeat this to my kids. I say, preparation is the key to success. Or whenever they say, oh, I'm late, I left my socks at home, I'll be like, preparation is the key to success. And it gets on their nerves, but they can repeat it because I've said it 10,000 times. Well, why is that important? Well, because if you study, for example, the life of a Donald Trump, and the reason I would say study that is not because whether you're a fan or not. I don't care. Some of you may be Trump supporters, some of you may not be. I don't judge people based on that because I don't think that stuff matters, honestly. But the thing is, either you're going to try to emulate that or you want to compete with that, right? So either you're going to maybe you see it as aspirational and you say, wow, this guy had this private jet, he's worth $1 billion. I want my kids to have $1 billion too. Or you say, I can't stand that guy, and I don't want, I would never want to work with someone like that, etc. But I think about it like this. I think of it as, Trump has kids, right? He has a little son named Barron. His name is Barron. Names mean a lot, So Barron means like I'm preparing you to be a leader. Like I want you to be powerful, right? Which he will be because he's gonna have a lot of money. So Barron will probably be a lot like his dad. And one day, one of your kids is going to have to work for a Barron Trump, or someone's going to try to get them to go work for a Barron Trump, right? So by you preparing today, you can actually position your children to be able to look eye to eye with the Barron Trumps of the world and to compete with the Barron Trumps of the world. Well, one of the things, so in order to compete with something, you should understand that thing. You should understand your friends and your enemies. So one thing that I understand about the Trump family that's really interesting is two things. One thing that stuck out to me was in about 1936 or so, his father, Fred, who was born, I think, around 1913, he was a carpenter, and he made a conscious decision. His father had died when he was young, and he made a conscious decision to go from fixing apartments to actually owning them. So he said, I don't want to just fix other people's apartments. I want to own apartment buildings. And that's what led him to become one of the biggest real estate holders in New York City, right? So that one decision, that one leap, literally shifted his reality, took him through an economic wormhole that allowed him to have a different set of experiences than he would have had if he continued to just sort of plug along at this job. The second thing I noticed was that when Donald was about maybe 12, his father sent him to military school. Now, their family philosophy, which isn't all bad, actually, you can get into the whole conversation about racism and everything else. Y'all can, that's not even a conversation I'm going to have because I tend to be overly analytical about stuff. But the thing that was interesting was their philosophy is, as a family, is that when you have money, you must be ready to fight. When because you're going to be going to court, you're going to be doing business deals, you're going to be in shark-infested waters on a regular basis. When you're sitting on $100 million, everybody's going to try to take it. So his father sent him to military school and said, son, everyone's going to want to fight you. You need to be ready to fight back. So I think that a lot of our children, really, when you talk about that discipline piece and protecting the family legacy, protecting the family wealth, have to learn how to fight, right? Because when you get to that space where you're sitting on a lot of money, life just isn't fair anymore. I remember seeing a Will Smith video where Will Smith was explaining to one of his nephews about sort of what it was like to have what it was like to be famous and have a lot of money. And he talked about the power of fame and the joy of it and everything else. But he said, one thing that drove me crazy is he said, I have to have 11 lawyers on retainer all the time because I get sued all the time for almost anything. And he said, so I learned how to fight off predators without letting it darken my heart because it just made him that mad. So that discipline piece is really important because you have to be able to defend the family empire. There is no group of people who have ever achieved freedom or prosperity that did not have to defend that prosperity or defend that freedom. So the same thing is true with economic freedom and economic prosperity. When you get it, you must defend it. That's going to be really important. So the next thing that sticks out to me when it comes to sort of dealing with wealth and dealing with things differently as you accumulate wealth is that you have to choose your partners carefully. That person in the picture with me is my beautiful wife-to-be, Alicia, and she's a therapist, and she's an expert on the subconscious mind. And I'm probably the guy that needs to marry a therapist because I'm half crazy myself, like a lot of our people are. And so sometimes, when we do our therapy sessions, which tend to be every day when we go running, we talk about some of the things that you have to think about when you're adding and subtracting people from your life. As you're climbing the ladder, you're going to constantly have to make additions and subtractions and modifications and adjustments because that's just going to affect everything that you do. So when it comes to business partners, one thing I've learned over time is that forming business partnerships is a lot like a marriage, except in fact, sometimes it can be more intense and more challenging. And so choosing business partners, I got to the point where I understood that it wasn't so much just about how much money someone could make. It was really ethics. It was really character. Like I really will spend a lot of time evaluating who a person is, how they carry themselves, how they roll. And I'll ask other people. And because that's the thing that makes the difference. It's not so much just about how much money they can make. Like you don't want anybody that's going to wreck your business, but you really need people that are built a certain way. Because maintaining a business partnership is like building a marriage. If you're going into something with somebody who can't stand the rain, then they're going to buckle and fold anytime things get hard. right? Like New Edition, you say, can you stand the rain, right? Well, you got to really ask yourself, when you're working with somebody, can you stand the rain? And, because business ain't easy. They're playing the game above the rim economically is not easy. Shuffling around large amounts of money, taking big losses is not easy, right? And so business partners, it requires a lot more thought, almost to the point where it almost becomes spiritual as much as it's economic. I kid you not. So business partners are life partners. That's really important too. And let me tell you why. First of all, divorce is super expensive for rich people. Dr. Dre, whatever stress he was going through, that poor guy, he ends up having a brain hemorrhage and he's in the hospital trying to avoid death, and writes a $2 million check to his wife for, I guess a couple months or a month or two of spousal support. And I'm not judging that divorce one way or the other, but one thing I can say is that there is a $10 billion a year industry that's built off of people whose marriages fall apart. What they find, studies show that 70% of all married couples, that when people get divorced, the average married couple loses 70% of their wealth through divorce. So the husband's wealth drops 70%, the wife's wealth drops 70%, because all the money's going to the lawyers, right? If you ever want to lose a lot of money, just get into a really bad marriage, because you're going to lose on at least two fronts. You're going to lose the money that it costs to actually get the divorce, but you're also going to lose a lot of capital from the productivity drain that occurs when you're arguing with your spouse every day and you're spending half your time, so much time being depressed that you can't actually get up and do any work. Oh, and then also there's the huge opportunity loss opportunity cost of having a person who is a detriment to what you're doing when you could have selected someone who was actually an additive force, right? So you could have had +3, but instead you got -3. So really you lost 6, right? Does that make sense? Right. So you have to think about all these things. So I'll just sort of tell on myself for a minute, and I will just say that what I had an honest conversation with my wife to be about why I married her. I said, when I started making more money, I started noticing that I started getting more handsome every year when I made more money. I don't know why, but suddenly women that normally would look right past me were giving me all kinds of attention. All my jokes were funny. I became the most interesting man in the world when they found out that I had a little bit of money, and because I'm interested in financial psychology. Like one of the first books I wrote was called Financial Lovemaking, where because I'm fascinated with how money affects how people think and what people do. And so they didn't know. I would be just looking at because I'm a scientist. I'll be like, wow, you really like me because I have money. That's so cool, But here's the thing. But I told her, I said, it made me feel so much better that you're a person where money is not that important to you. And it wasn't so much just a matter of feeling threatened by people who value money, because actually it's very natural for people to be attracted to people who have money, just for various reasons. We can talk about that later. But I said, also, it tells me that if I ever lost my money, that it wouldn't shift the relationship too much. That, that her currency is that she values is completely unrelated to financial currency. I can literally go to her and say, hey, babe, I made an extra $1 trillion, and she wouldn't react differently. In fact, she could actually react negatively if I did something if I did something to hurt her feelings that day, or if I ignored her that morning, or whatever, right? Or if I missed date night or whatever, right? And so what that means is not so much to say that that this is the perfect choice, the perfect match. What it really says is that you have to, it's about knowledge of self, right? It took me time to kind of realize what I was sort of looking for, and to take that time to find it so that it would fit with my existing life portfolio. You see, what the thing is that you already have a portfolio. You already have a bunch of things in your label to you. And one of the things about putting together a portfolio in finance is that you don't pick an asset that you add to your life based on how much extra money it'll make. You pick based on what they call correlation, meaning that you look at everything you've got going on and how does this fit? So one of the things about being an entrepreneur is that everything doesn't fit for you. You're a weirdo. You work, extra long hours. You probably work 7 days a week. I don't know, raise your hand if you're in this category. You're not a 9-to-5 corporate-y kind of person, most likely. So it takes a certain fit in terms of knowing if that person's going to be an additive force in your life or not, right? And so it has to go deeper than a big butt and a smile, or whether or not you think he's tall and handsome. It's much more complex than that, and the implications are massive. You make the wrong choice, you can lose everything, right? So just be very thoughtful about your partnerships. So values matter, equity matters. That's really important. Also, your other relationships matter in terms of your friends that you have around you, things like that. One thing I found is that wealthy people sometimes have a little bit of a different process when it comes to making friends. Like so, for example, if you're doing extremely well and your friend is flat broke, your best buddy's flat broke, and you say things like, "Hey, if you ever need anything, let me know." Well, if you're rich, that can mean a lot. That can mean more than what you think, right? Typically, it means nothing. Like people are just like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll call you if I want to talk to you or tell you about my problems." But when you've got millions of dollars in the bank and your friend is struggling, then you say little things like, if you need anything, let me know. Well, some people will cash that check. Like they will come in and cash that, right? And the thing is that having money will make you a magnet. People want to be friends with rich people. They just do. And so ultimately, I think a consciousness about who's in your circle has to occur. It doesn't mean that people have to make a certain amount of money to be around you. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that sort of being aware of that and what that really means could be extremely important, especially when you talk about family members that are aware of how much money you have and what that can do. I have lost so many people I love, like close friends, over financial scenarios where I just had to say no, right? Because I got tired of, I was like, I'm drained. I can't, I've helped you 8 times in a row. I'm not doing this no more. And next thing you know, you've lost a close friend or relative, and you had lost a bunch of money because they borrowed money and never paid you back, right? So I have found that literally there is a whole science around just simply dealing with people when you actually have some money in the bank, where you can still be generous but still draw boundaries. It's an ongoing process. So next, the one thing I would encourage you to do as entrepreneurs is to give your business a test. Make yourself disappear from your business. And why do I say that? Well, because a lot of times when we build our businesses where we are the most important variable in the business all the time. We don't spend a lot of time thinking about delegation. We don't spend a lot of time thinking about automation, training other people to take over for us. And that's just stressful anyway, because really, I used to think that the goal in life, when I grew up, I didn't know anything. We didn't talk anything about money, wealth, investing, stocks, bonds, none of that. I thought the best thing you could have in life was a really great job. And then later on in life, I start seeing, these entrepreneurs and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I'd like to do this, right? So then I realized that level 2 is when you can actually buy your freedom and buy yourself out of your job and become, an entrepreneur where you're running the company and kind of doing your thing and busting your butt, but you're free, right? And you're making more money. So it's good. But then you get to the point where you hit what they call diminishing returns, where you're working 40 hours a week and you're making money. Then you work 50 hours a week, you're making more. 60 hours a week, you're making more. And then you start getting past 60 hours a week and your quality of life starts to decline because you're working all the time. So you're this $500 an hour lawyer who has more clients than they can possibly handle. But you get to the point where you realize that you're a human being, you're not a machine. And so that's when you go to level 3, which might be delegation and automation, right? Where you then realize, wait, instead of working 60 hours a week, I can work 600 hours a week. I just have to find 8 or 10 people and train them so that I can pass work on to them and learn how to delegate, and also maybe some automation in my business, which, guys like Lamar are really good with that will allow me to make money while I'm sleeping and things like that. And that's really cool too. And but then I also realized that that's actually not the highest level. The highest level that I consider to be almost like economic nirvana is when you get to the point where you don't even have to go to work to make money. You don't have to delegate anything. You don't have to punch a button on your computer. You could be on a desert and you will be making money because you own assets, right? You have a bunch of stock and some real estate, and maybe you own percentages of businesses, but you're not an active participant in any of the businesses. And so literally you maybe roll over, you look at your app and you sell some stock options, and the money goes in your bank account, you can pay your bills, and then you roll over and go back to sleep. That to me, I think, is the highest level in terms of making money. And the reason I bring all this up is because I believe that the goal of the entrepreneur should be to say, how do I get to the point where I can really remove myself from the process and have the process work? And if it doesn't work when you're not there, that means that you got to train somebody, you got to position somebody, you need to put a system in place, you need some automation, maybe you need to reallocate your assets in a certain way. But making yourself disappear allows you to live forever. this is the key to immortality. Because like I said in the beginning, we started the conversation off with a pretty grim statement. I hope I didn't make anybody sad, but it's a reality. You're all going to die. Everybody's going to die. And so in my mind, I said the best way I can give myself eternal life is to spend my life preparing for my death, right? Not because I think I'm going to be gone. I hope I live another 50 years, but at least maybe longer. But I'm going to die, right? And so if I prepare, then I can live forever. This business can last hundreds of years after I'm gone. And that requires spending time sort of training, not just the kids to take over when I'm gone, but putting wills and trusts and estate plans in place. So I spend a lot of time sitting with the lawyer, setting up automations that are going to run long after I'm gone, talking to my business. My brother runs my business with me, so we talk about transition plans and things like that. And they get a little bit sad, like they really think that I'm going to die, like I haven't told them about the cancer or something. I'm like, no, I've never been more alive in my life, and this is all part of my plan to live forever. And so, because when you have wealth and you are the steward of massive wealth, you have a huge responsibility for all those people that are on your team who are not yet born. Your greatest teammates are not even born yet. And it is up to you to do the opposite of what Antoine Walker did. When Antoine Walker blew all that money, $111 million as an NBA player, I was livid because I said, man, you just threw away your grandchildren's money. Your great-grandchildren could have been billionaires off of that money, and you threw it all away. You have a great-great-granddaughter who's going to graduate from Harvard, and she could go on and do amazing things, but she's not going to be able to do it because you're stupid, right? And I hate saying it like that, but that's how I feel. That's how mad I got. So I don't want to be stupid. So I think the goal of everybody in here, at the very least, I hope I can at least convince you to say to yourself, I'm not going to be stupid. I'm going to be calculated. It's not about me. It's going to be bigger than me. And I'm going to make sure that my last name, this business that we built is going to last after I'm gone. And that requires you to spend time training other people, putting systems in place, and preparing to not just maintain what's there, but to actually position it to grow. So let's keep going. So when you put together your endowment and estate plans, I encourage you to put as specific of instructions as you possibly can in there. It's okay if you haven't done it yet, but if you haven't done it, just know tomorrow's not promised for anybody. Go see that lawyer as soon as you can, and that's how you solve some of the problems that I've seen that rich people have, and also not just solving the problems, but actually create the possibility of prosperity in your life. And I want you to be prosperous. I don't just want you to solve the problems and avoid the tragedy. I want you to actually understand the potential of what you have. If you're doing better than anybody in your family has done up until this point, you are the steward of something amazing. You have a tremendous opportunity and a responsibility. And if you do it right, you can impact hundreds of people that you don't even know yet. So I'm done talking. I hope that this was helpful. If anybody has any questions, I will answer any question that you have. I'm going to be quiet until they tell me to talk.
Right. What about now? Let me know if y'all can hear me in the chat. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. Hey, Dr. Boyce, appreciate you, man, coming through.
Sure.
First of all, as always, let me do this. Right. I got a few questions for you. Then we'll take a few questions from the audience as well. If y'all enjoy Dr. Boyce, do me a favor. Hey, yes. Give me some yeses, all that kind of stuff. All right. Okay.